Whether you're looking for a job promotion, or you want a good price on a new car, or maybe you want a discount on your cable bill, negotiations are all around us and ever present. So in this video, I'm going to share 4 easy tips on how you can get what you want without sacrificing the relationship. Okay, so let me just start by reminding you what I mean by negotiation. When we talk about negotiation, and I say they're all around us, I think of negotiation as any time I'm trying to get anybody to do anything. So whenever I'm trying to influence someone's choice, I am negotiating. So if, for example, I want to get my significant other to agree that we should go get ice cream, then that's a negotiation. If I'm trying to get my supervisor to adopt my strategy, that's a negotiation. So the ubiquity of negotiations are pretty amazing, but the steps that we can take to be successful are pretty universal. Number 1 step is preparation in advance. So when I talk about preparation here, I think a lot of times what people have in mind is thinking about where I'd like to land, and then what maybe is the least I'm willing to take, and then maybe a little bit of research on why my numbers or why my proposal is more defensible or more fair or more persuasive. And that's actually not what I mean by preparation. By preparation, I mean thinking about what are your underlying interests? What's really important to you? Not just the position, but the thing that really matters. And what might be important to them? Again, not just their bottom lines, not just their demands. So let me give you an example of the importance of preparation. So with my friend and colleague, Joelle Salinas, I was in the process recently of writing a book proposal for a book that we are in fact writing, and that I hope some of you will ultimately be interested in reading, on a topic called conflict resilience. So ultimately, we got to a point where there were a number of publishers who were interested in our book, and we were entering final negotiations with one of the publishers. One of the things we did is think about not just what their bottom lines might be, but we were really interested in understanding what motivates this particular person, what makes things yesable for her, what has her past experience in negotiations been like. And so part of what we did is we spanned really wide, talking to all sorts of other colleagues who had worked with this publisher, but also other colleagues who had been involved in high-stakes book negotiations. And as we did this, we learned all sorts of things about what fair standards were, how this person thought about a good book, what might a yesable proposition be. All of this helped us enormously in framing our arguments and in framing how we would give something that would be good for us and also yesable to her. And this leads to a second important goal, which is in that negotiation, I always want to be looking for mutual gains. So what do I mean by mutual gains? Often, I think when we go into a negotiation, many of us think that it's zero-sum in nature, right? Anything I get is something you lose, and anything you get is something I lose. But that assumption about negotiation is really cramped and is fundamentally untrue. Because when I move from positions to interests, I can expand the range of possible outcomes where there are situations where it's not about concession making, but where both of us can actually do well in the negotiation. So a classic example that I use is, imagine that I would like to live on the 5th floor of a 5-story walk-up. And my interest, it sounds like, is to live on the 5th floor. But actually that is my position. If I stick with my position and the landlady says I only have a 1st floor apartment, really, this is a distributive negotiation. Either I'm going to rent the 1st floor apartment and not have my dream of living on the 5th floor met, or I'm going to walk away and she's not going to rent an open apartment. But if we get to the underlying interest, which maybe in my case is that 5 is my lucky number, it may well be the case that there's no fifth floor apartment, but unit 125 is available. And suddenly I could have my interest in having some proximity to the number 5, which I have an emotional attachment to, and she could actually rent an empty apartment. So looking for mutual gains, really important in negotiation. Third, I want to do all that I can to think outside of the box. I want to promote creativity in this negotiation. One way that we think we can be creative is focusing on shared interests, but in fact, a really better way is to look at differences between the parties, because differences between the parties often give us an opportunity to think creatively. Specifically in a negotiation, once I've identified the interests of the parties, I want to set up some very specific time where we agree to brainstorm what are some ideas, what are some options that we can do to meet some of the interests that have been identified. Let me give you a real life example. Some years ago, I had done some work for The Gap, and I suspect as many of you know, The Gap is a clothes store that also owns several other chains, including Banana Republic and Old Navy. It turns out I wear clothes from The Gap, Banana Republic, and Old Navy. In fact, even though you do not see the pants I'm wearing right now, I can assure you that they are khakis from The Gap. So one thing we could do is just figure out how much should I get paid for my services. But what we also decided to do was spend a little bit of time thinking, is there any way we can create some additional value for one or both of us without making the other party worse off? Now, because I wear clothes from The Gap, I had an idea. And I said to them, listen, what would you think of taking $1,000 off of my fee, and in exchange, you give me a gift certificate to your stores for $2,000? Now, why am I suggesting this? Well, it turns out that over some, not super long period of time, I will spend $2,000 at Old Navy, The Gap, and Banana Republic. And while I didn't know the margins of these stores, my guess, and I think most of you will agree with me, is that a $2,000 gift certificate actually costs The Gap way less than $1,000. So let's pretend it costs them $400. That means that there's $1,400 worth of value to be divided, where the worst thing they can say is, we don't like that idea. Now, it turns out they love that idea, and for years, all of my friends and family would only get gifts from The Gap, Banana Republic, and Old Navy. In fact, even now, this story is paying off for The Gap because I am putting it out into the universe, and that will make people think about those stores. So the idea here, right, we're not trading on a shared interest. We're trading on a difference. The difference is the relative valuation of the cost of the gift certificate. The gift certificate of $2,000, that's worth $2,000 to me. The gift certificate of the $2,000 cost them $400. So it makes sense to make this trade, but the only way we get to it is if we can think creatively. Last important point for success in negotiations is to manage emotions that might come to the table. And when I say manage emotions, I want to be clear about what I do not mean. I do not mean keep feelings out of it. In fact, if anyone says to you to succeed in negotiations, keep feelings out of it, I would discount any advice they give you in negotiation, because feelings are part of being human. I have had the pleasure of working in many contexts, in schools, in hospitals, in factories, in churches, in synagogues, in mosques. I have never walked into any workplace of any kind where there was a sign on the door and a box that said, please deposit your feelings here for pickup later this afternoon. So when I say manage emotions, what I mean is find a way to use emotions, yours and theirs, in a skillful way to inform your decisions and come out with good outcomes. That means becoming aware of your own feelings, anxieties, hopes, and fears in the negotiation, and finding a way to acknowledge theirs as well. Emotions well handled acknowledged, and recognized help us make really good decisions in negotiation. And emotions that are hidden, suppressed, and packed away, they leak out. In fact, human beings are about 50% accurate in detecting a lie about facts in negotiation, but they're 90% accurate in detecting a lie about emotions. So, to summarize, to succeed in a negotiation, get what you want and build a relationship, prepare in advance, thinking about your interests and theirs. In the negotiation, look for mutual gains, not just concessions. Spend time, third, in that negotiation, building an opportunity to think out of the box, to think creatively. And fourth, have a strategy for managing your emotions and theirs. If you want to continue to improve your negotiation skills, watch this next critical video, which talks about what is the most important negotiation skill. And if you want you or your team to build better negotiation and communication skills, please reach out to me at the Cambridge Negotiation Institute, where I can offer all sorts of tailored courses to do that. Don't forget to like this video, ring the bell, and I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd subscribe to my channel. Okay, you want to know what that secret skill is. Keep watching.